Hi guys, it's April 20th, 2026. I think I'm going to name this something along the lines of Proof of Giants from the Smithsonian with a question mark. Because I have to be honest with you, I don't speak medical. And I have a book I'm going to read from and I'm going to show it to you, but I probably will not pronounce most of these words properly, let alone understand what they are. I am more asking you, those of you who have medical backgrounds, to tell me if what this means is that they are admitting that there were giants. Okay? I have this book, and it is called The Annual Report of the Board of Regents of the Smithsonian Institute showing... Nope, that is not the title page. Or maybe it is. The Annual Report of the Board of Regents of the Smithsonian Institution showing the operations, expenditures, and condition of the Institute for the year 1867. And then at the bottom of the page it says Washington Government Printing Office 1868 is when this book was published. You can see all that, so you know I'm telling the truth. 1868, published in 1868 for the year 1867. And on the next page, I just wanted to read a little bit so you understand this book. It's basically all of the reports and it's all the documentation from 1867, okay? So, in the Senate of the United States, May 30th, 1868, it's dark in here, resolved that 5,000 additional copies of the report of the Smithsonian Institute for the year 1867 be printed, 3,000 for the use of the Senate and 2,000 for the institution. And that said report be stereotyped, provided that the aggregate number of pages of said report shall not exceed 450, without illustrations except those furnished by the Institute. And then it says in the House of Representatives, June 5th, 1868, resolved that there be printed 5,000 extra copies of the report of the Smithsonian Institution, 3,000 for the use of the House and 2,000 for the institution, and that the same be stereotyped at the expense heretofore provided for. And that's that page. And you can pause it and save it, or if you need to, if you want to. And one more, the next page. Letter of the Secretary. Hold on, I am going to grab, I'm so sorry. Hold on. It is dark over here because I have one of those coffee tables that lifts up, and so I'm trying to read underneath it. It's a little dark, and my eyes just aren't what they used to be. Letter of the Smithsonian Institute communicating the annual report of the operations, expenditures, and condition of the institution for the year 1867, Smithsonian Institution, Washington, May 29th, 1868. Sir, in behalf of the Board of Regents, I have the honor to submit to the Congress of the United States the annual report of the operations, expenditures, and condition of the Smithsonian Institute for the year 1867. I have the honor to be, very respectfully, your obedient servant, Joseph Henry. Secretary, Smithsonian Institution. Honorable B.F. Wade, President of the Senate. Honorable S. Colfax, Speaker of the House of Representatives. And that is that page. And I'm just reading these so that you understand the book itself. It is from the Smithsonian. It is all of their stuff for that year. Yeah. Okay, one more. Where should I read? I don't want to read all of this, so we will start at, I guess we will. I'm going to read this whole paragraph. The very extent, and this is on, if you happen to have one of these books or you get one of these books, this is on page 34. It says, the very extensive collection of ethnological articles from almost every part of the world made by the United States exploring expedition under Captain, now Admiral, Wilkes, having been placed in the charge of the institution, not only afford a basis for a comparison of the different modes of life and stages of advancement among existing tribes, but an important means of determining the ethnological relations of the natives of the present day to those whose ancient remains lie thickly strewn over our whole continent, talking about the United States. For example, implements of stone and of bone are almost everywhere found. The workmanship of races that have long since disappeared and of which the use would be difficult of determination were not similar implements as to form and material found in actual use at the present day among savages, particularly those inhabiting the various islands of the Pacific Ocean. I wanted to do that. Okay, one more small portion. During the past year, large and valuable collections have been received from the Northwest Coast and from within the Arctic Circle, illustrative of the Indians and Eskimo, interesting way, I like that, of these regions. I wanted to put that in there too, so that you understand that they are saying that there were people here since God created here. You know, we were taught that, I am having a brain day today. The guy. I'm not going to fix this. We're going to go with it because I don't sit down and make enough videos. We're going with it. The guy that discovered America. They're saying they're finding bones and tools all over this continent, and that there's no denying that there have been people here for thousands of years. You know, we didn't discover anything. First of all, he didn't discover, he wasn't the first one here anyways, but, you know, we're taught these things. So that's what they're saying. There are lots and lots and lots of bones and artifacts and tools to, that the Smithsonian has been given and found, and from all over America, all over. And I wanted to throw that in there just as a little side note. And again, that's page 34 and 35. Now, having read that, I am going to stumble over these words. It's a lot of medical jargon, and I don't understand any of it. I don't know how to say most of it. And I will give you, close-ups of the page so that you can get snapshots, and you can get back to me and let me know if this is proof from the Smithsonian that there were giants. So this is why I go hunting in these little bookstores and I find the most obscure books. I don't buy the fancy antique books. This is the kind of stuff that really interests me. And I've got all kinds of fun books that we're going to explore. I need more time. I need more time. I need to be able to sit down and dedicate myself to doing this on a regular basis is what I need. Okay, so on page 412 and 413, I'm going to show this to you because there's only a couple actual pictures in here. Very, very, very few, as I read in the beginning, and this has one. And that is the picture, the frontal and the side view. And the caption says, "Descriptions of a human skull in the collection of the Smithsonian Institute by J. Aitken, A-I-T-K-E-N, Meigs, M-E-I-G-S, M-D." Okay? Now, again, I'm going to stumble over a lot of words. And we're going to read 1, 2, and then this portion of this. So, that much. And really not, because there's notes down here. And again, I will let you take a still pic. So I won't even be reading this because those are logs, the numbers of their logs. So, having said that, let's get to it. This remarkable, now if you've ever gone to the doctor and you had tests done and you go in and you check the results and it'll say unremarkable. It means they didn't find anything out of the ordinary. This is saying this remarkable cranium. That is what captured my attention as I was going through this book. But again, I don't understand. And I did come up, I looked up averages of, but I don't know what this means, okay? Sorry, we're getting to it. This remarkable cranium, number 6439 of the Smithsonian Collection, was found in June 1866 in a fissure of the rock at Rock Bluff on the Illinois River, where the river is crossed by the 40th parallel of latitude. The fissure, which is 3 feet wide, was filled with the drift material of this region, consisting of clay, sand, and broken stone, the whole being covered with a stratum of surface soil. In this bed, which had apparently been undisturbed since the deposit, was found the skull under consideration at the depth of 3 feet. So what they're saying is it was put there and it hasn't been touched. It's been like that since it was put there. It is, oh boy, dolichocephalic and symmetrically oval in form, and is especially remarkable for its great length. Now, that was something else that grabbed my attention, because these giants that they're finding, especially over in Peru, the Peruvian giants, they call them, have elongated heads. And supposedly, I don't know, it's one of those rabbit holes, the pharaohs in Egypt have, hold on, let me show you. I just so happen to have one of my coffee table books. Let me see if there's a picture in here. Okay. Supposedly, and this is the book. It's Tutankhamun with 496 jigsaw puzzles. And on the inside, you can see that's a puzzle. Okay. Now here, Supposedly, the pharaohs had elongated heads. Why? Because Nephilim, fallen angels, offspring. And that's why they wore certain types of, let me see, oh, look, right here. See the elongated head? Now, I don't know if that's what this book is talking about. You have to tell me, because I don't know. I don't understand this. I did try to research, but I don't know anything about medical things, so I don't know. I just know. Here's another one. This is why they wore these types of crowns, because they had elongated heads. That's the rabbit hole, okay? Is it true? I don't know. I don't know. But that's how this sounds in here. Okay, so we're going to go back. It is dolichocephalic and symmetrically oval in form, and is especially remarkable for its great length, for the protuberance of the posterior or parieto-occipital region, the flatness of the frontal bone, and the great development of the superciliary ridges. I believe it's been a little bit since I looked it up. I think that's like your brow bones. And basically, if I understand this, which I don't, it's kind of saying that the brow bones, it's so flat in the front that they kind of almost indent. You tell me. Tell me if I gave up, because I just didn't understand enough to be able to go with this. You know what I mean? And so I'm asking you. Okay, the great development of the superciliary ridges and the mastoid processes and the depth of the temporal fossae, the length as compared with the breadth is as 41 to 27, and with the height as 41 to 28. We're going to come back to that, and I'm going to share, I looked up the averages, the measurements of the average human skull. The sagittal suture has evidently undergone complete ossification at a comparatively early period. And what they're talking about is when you're born, your skull is not fused together. And I'm not going to go into all that because I don't understand enough. But it was fused at a comparatively early period. A small portion only of the anterior part of this suture showing any traces of the serrations. The lambdoidal suture appears to have become ossified at a later period and is less completely obliterated than the sagittal. The occipito-temporal sutures, which are generally the first to ossify, are still open. Interesting. As is also the coronal suture. Owing to this departure from the usual order of ossification of the sutures, the lateral expansion of the brain has been interfered with. That's interesting. And yes, I have read this. It's just, I'm being reminded. And its antero-posterior or longitudinal development greatly favored. The extreme elongation of the skull. The extreme elongation of the skull, therefore, is readily accounted for. From the superior region, the skull widens out towards the base to such an extent that the intermastoid diameter or breadth at the base is somewhat greater than either the bitemporal or vertical diameters. The mastoid processes are very large. The upper half of the os occipital is quite prominent, and the convexities indicating the position of the cerebellar fossa moderately full and round. I think they're talking about the upper part. I don't know. I don't pretend to know. The allophenoids curve backwards considerably between the bones. Their external surface is deeply concave. See, that's what I was talking about. Concave, which means it would dip inwards. As is also that portion of the os frontis lying directly behind the external angular process and below the temporal ridge. Hence, the temporal fossae are unusually deep. The superciliary ridges are thick and protuberant, curving somewhat like the horns of a goat, upwards and outwards from the glabella, of which they appear to, now they did not say, don't run with that, okay? It says appears. Let's not get carried away. Upwards and outwards from the glabella, and of which they appear to be the continuation and completely overhanging the ossa nasi and the upper and internal angles of the orbits in such a manner as to coalesce with and obliterate the inner half of the supraorbital margins. I hope and pray that those of you who have medical backgrounds are understanding what I'm saying. I'm going to hold the page up so you can take a snapshot, okay? And then you can go back and look at what I'm messing up. Above these ridges, the os frontis is incurvated, but becomes somewhat more prominent again at a point just below the middle of the frontal suture. The great prominence, see they keep using these, the great prominence, the remarkable, again at a point just below the middle of the frontal suture. The great prominence of the superciliary ridges in this cranium is a notable feature inasmuch as the American Aboriginal skull is characterized by the absence rather than by the presence of these ridges. Now, I've gone down the rabbit hole and I've seen videos of, if you go and study the elongated skulls of Peru, they don't have the, like humans. They don't have them. Okay. I find upon careful examination that in the great majority of the American Indian crania contained in the collection of the Academy of Natural Sciences, these ridges are wholly or almost entirely absent. They are moderately developed in the following specimens, and this is where they give you a whole list of specimens that they have in their museum. Now I'm going to hold this up. You can take a snapshot and go back and reread it. Got it? Okay. Almost done. And I'm sorry that I don't know all these things. Now it's going to get interesting because we have measurements, okay? This is where it gets fun, and you can tell me because I don't know. I don't know anything. I am a novice. I know nothing. Okay. Actually, the superciliary ridges are more decidedly developed in the, and then it has another list. The dimensions of the Smithsonian skull are exhibited in the following table. The occipito-frontal or longitudinal diameter is 7 and 11/16 inches. The frontal diameter is 3 3/8 inches. The bitemporal diameter is 5 1/16 inches. The biparietal diameter is 5 inches. The posterior transverse diameter between the posterior inferior angles of the parietalia are 5 3/8 inches. The vertical diameter is 5 1/4 inches. The intermastoid diameter is 5 3/8 inches. The occipital frontal arch is 14 5/8 inches. The frontal arch is 11 1/8 inches. The parietal arch, parietal, I'll hold the page up to you. Arch is 12 inches. The occipital arch is 10 inches. The horizontal periphery, 20 3/4 inches. The meato, M-E-A-T-O, meato frontal diameter, 4 1/16 inches. The metoparietal diameter, 3 1/16 inches. And the metooccipital diameter is 4 11/16 inches. Okay, we have 2 more paragraphs, and then I will give you what I looked up as the average for today's human being. The region of county from which this cranium was obtained was occupied when first visited by the Jesuit missionaries in 1665 by the Saukis, I'm sorry if I'm saying them wrong, Saukies, or White Clay Indians, the Foxes, Antagamies, or Antagamies, or as they call themselves, Musqueam. I'm sure I'm not saying these right. Or Red Clay Indians, the Kickapoos, and the Illinois, the latter comprising the Kaskaskias, Cahokias, Tamaronas, Peorias, and by confederation, though not by consanguination, the Michigamias. These western tribes of the great Algonquin stock are represented in the Academy's collection by 3 Sauk, 4 Otigami, and 6 Illinois crania. The Smithsonian cranium bears no resemblance to the Sauk or Otigami skulls, nor to any of the Illinois crania except NOS 1500 and 1511, which you can look up in the little list they gave us, which were taken from an ancient mound. These 2 skulls are very much alike, and they resemble the Smithsonian head in their oval form, in the flatness of the frontal bone, the prominence of the superciliary ridges, and the depression above these ridges. There are 2 other mound skulls in the Academy's collection, NOS 1287 and 1288, which bear some resemblance to the skull under notice. These were taken from an ancient mound in Chillicothe, Ohio by Dr. E.H. Davis and Mr. E.G. Squire. Number 1287 has a flat forehead and somewhat elevated superciliary ridges, and is dolichocephalic and oval in form. I'm assuming that is an elongated skull. My neighbor is mowing his lawn, so if you hear that noise. Number 1288 is more like the Smithsonian specimen in its elongated and oval Eorm, E-O-R-M. Maybe that's old speak for form. I don't know. And in the prominence of the occiput, though the frontal bone is not so recedent and the superciliary ridges much less prominent, the dolichocephalic Upsaroka skull, number 1228, somewhat resembles the Smithsonian specimen in the elevation of the superciliary ridges and the flatness of the frontal bone. Of all the American Indian crania, however, contained in the Museum of the Academy, number 744, which I have provisionally referred to in the Museum of the Academy, referred to in the Kootenays, approximates the Smithsonian specimen most closely in its dolichocephalic oval form, the flatness of the forehead, and the prominence of the superciliary ridges. Number 744, however, is less regular and symmetrically oval, projects more in the supraccipital region, and has a more recedent forehead. The superciliary ridges are equally prominent in both skulls, but in the Kootenai head they do not coalesce with the supraorbital margins, as is the case in the Smithsonian skull. In the Kootenai cranium, the supraorbital margins are distinct and well defined throughout their whole course, from the internal to the external angular processes. In the Smithsonian head, as we have just seen, the inner half of these margins are so encroached upon by the superciliary ridges as to be obliterated. Bearing in mind the locality in which it was found, the skull under consideration is so far unique in its ethnical character that I do not feel authorized to refer it to any of the Aboriginal American cranial forms with which I am acquainted. How interesting. If the position in which it was discovered be any evidence of its age, it belongs in all probability to an earlier inhabitant of the American continent than the present race of Indians. In the absence of a complete series of American Indian crania, it is impossible to assign to this skull its proper ethnical position. How interesting. So, I forgot to show you the page. Now I gotta find it again. Doggone it. There we go. Okay. I am getting a call. So here's this. There's the whole page. And there are the dimensions. And then up here. That way you can go back and read it yourself, because I know I just demolished half these words, if not all. But if I am understanding enough, they can't categorize the skull. Now, I did, cause I don't know how to use AI, and I don't know how to do all that stuff. So I did ask around to see if someone could put the dimensions into AI and get a picture. It was what I was hoping to do so I could share it, but nobody responded. But I looked up, I put in the measurements of the average human skull, and this is what I got. The cranial length is 18 centimeters, which is 7.1 inches. And the cranial breadth is 15 centimeters, which is 5.9 inches. And over here, on the first page we read, it said that it said 18 and 15, okay? And the skull was 41 and 28. So that's a huge difference. And that's why I got really excited, because, you know, I'm all about the giants. That is the one rabbit hole I will go down every time. It's just they've hidden so much proof. And who hides it? These guys. They hide it. Because at this time, they were trying to convince the world that the earth is like billions of years old, and Darwinism, and instead of what the Bible says. These guys. And this is their book. So if you could tell me and give me the information I need, I can do another video and do it much better. And maybe, you know, give me a list of what these terms mean and the difference in the measurements, and we could do so much better. But anyways, let me know, is this proof from the ones that hide it? Is this proof of giants? Please. They're saying that this is so, the skull is so dramatic that they cannot even put it into a category of people, which I find absolutely exciting. And again, this book is from 1968 for the year 1967. So let me know as soon as possible. That would be fantastic. All right, I will talk to you guys soon. I love you. Jehovah loves you more. Yeshua loves you so much that he died for you. Have a good day.